my god, day has come. I'm on my way to start the race. It's cold and it's early, but I think I'm good to go. See you at the finish line. Feeling good, not really tired, but I need to slow it down, going a bit fast. It's the 20k marker. It's nice and cool, just fabulous. Oh, that bitch doesn't fall over. Here she is! Go, Ruth! Let's go!
My first marathon today, but guess what? I was asked to MC, so sorry.
And I just ran my first
So guys, as you just saw, I ran my first marathon last weekend, and honestly, there is no better feeling. I've been working so hard, training so hard for it. I decided to do it a month before the actual race, which was really difficult because I was trying to go online and look for programs, running programs and things like that to follow, but I couldn't find anything because everyone had been training for months, and I think the least amount of time that I saw somebody train for the marathon was like 10 weeks or something like that, and that looked really strenuous and it was documented, but I'm sure there are a million people out there who just feel like they don't need to broadcast it like I have. But here is my medal. I'm so happy. It was an amazing thing to do. It was such a big tick off my checklist of things to do in my life. It was one of those things that I'd always wanted to do, but I genuinely didn't think I ever actually would. But not only did I just run my first marathon, but I ran it off fat, which was almost a little experiment for myself. Like, I read that endurance athletes were benefiting off this diet greatly, and I just wanted to try it out for myself. I wanted to see how I went. Just running off fat, so not using any of those glucose gels or not using any of the flavored electrolytes that they give you on the run, and not fueling with carbs before and post. So that was really interesting, and honestly it was the best. I've never felt more energized at that 20-kilometer mark as well. Like, honestly, I looked at the marker and I was like, this could not be right. This is not half the race. I know that it was like a little bit less than half, but honestly, it felt like I'd only been running for 10k or something. So prior to running this marathon, I can't say that I wasn't a runner, so I've always enjoyed running, but the greatest distance I've ever run was for a half marathon, and that often killed me. And I now know that it all came down to my nutrition. I would have huge carb loading meals the night before, and I'd have all kinds of problems in the morning with digestion and just feeling bloated and heavy. I remember when I was preparing for one of my half marathons a couple of years ago, my friend actually said to me, he was like, why don't you try and fuel off fat? And I just like looked at him, and there were a few of us in the room, and we kind of just like laughed at him, like, what would you know? And when I first started this diet and I went for a few runs, and I noticed that my energy levels were lasting longer and I was feeling so much more energized throughout the run, that it was much better. My muscles didn't fatigue almost as quickly, and my recovery time was much shorter. I'll get into nutrition in a little bit, but honestly, do it off fat, get into ketosis, get fat adapted, and then do your long runs that way, because I promise you, your results will be much better. So in the weeks before the 1 month of deciding I was going to do this marathon, I'd been strictly weight training and strength training, which I actually think worked to my advantage. I'd done a bit of research and saw that strength training was actually really beneficial for somebody who is training for a marathon or a long distance run, just because you really want to strengthen the muscles. You really want to also strengthen the connective tissue as well. So that is actually what is going to hurt the most in a run. I found also with stretching as well, it's really important to stretch. So I get tight quads, and I found when I wasn't really stretching those quads, the pain would then go down into my knees, and after a long run, I wouldn't feel the pain in my knees during the run, but after the run, it would really, really hurt, like every time I sat down. And it was almost as though they needed to be greased up before that pain went away. So when I would stand up after sitting down, I would have to walk for a little bit to get them warm. And yeah, it was just, I knew where it was coming from. It was coming from my quads and my thighs. So it's really important to do the rollout things as well, like the muscle rollouts, and just stretch, really important. So my nutrition, what I ate the night before, before a big run, even during training, I would always make sure that I had a really fatty, but a good fat meal, so rich in omegas. So I would always, I think pretty much before every like 25 kilometer, 30 kilometer plus run, I would always have a fillet of salmon. And this was really, really good because omegas are amazing for inflammation and recovery. So I found that I wasn't overly sore after going for these runs. I get a little bit of pain in my knee, but I knew that that was coming from just not looking after my quadriceps properly. But yeah, honestly, fill yourself with omegas and healthy fats the night before and even the morning of. So the morning of, I would always have some, because I'm used to fasting. I've been intermittently fasting for a few months, so breakfast wasn't really a thing for me. I didn't want it at all, but I would always get up and have a bulletproof coffee. So I'd have my coconut oil, and I'd always have MCT oil. Just have what you can tolerate. I get like a lot of questions of people having their oily coffees and things like that, and not tolerating it, them just feeling nauseous for the rest of the day. This actually happened to me when I first started the diet, when I was just introducing all the oils. It did make me feel really sick. You can blend them, but it's up to you. I'm too lazy to blend my coffees in the morning. I'd rather just have the oil, and because I've been doing it for so long, I actually prefer that oily taste. It's kind of gross, but whatever. Sorry, back to the night before as well. I would always have a magnesium tablet. This just was for really good for aches and pains, and not that I really had any, but if you're experiencing like muscle aches and you're just fatigued overall, the magnesium will really help for that. And it's also really good for helping you sleep. And yeah, so I'd have my bulletproof coffee in the morning, and I would always have a handful of nuts. So I would go with either almonds or macadamias. Macadamias are really, really good. I made sure they were salted as well, so you're getting your salts and therefore your electrolytes in for the run. I salted them myself, so I'd always put pink Himalayan sea salt. Table salt, not so good for you. And I would occasionally have almonds as well. I packed the almonds for the day. The almonds are higher in carb, so I was more inclined to stick to the nuts that were really high in fat and also calorie dense. I wanted something calorie dense because burning through those calories, it's like, that race took me like 4 hours, so that's 4 hours that I need to be fueled. So yeah, also with that, I would have a couple of big scoops of crunchy peanut butter, really high in fat, so 9.5 grams and only 2.6 grams of carbohydrates per serving. So I'd have a couple of servings of that. So during the race, I was a little bit hesitant not to take anything, but I didn't like glucose gels and things like that, only because I was a bit afraid. But I had to remind myself I hadn't been training with them, so why would I need them on the day of the race? So I got these online, MCT snack chews. I tried these once when I was training, and they were really, really, I didn't like them. I don't know, I can't really describe the texture in my mouth, but they turned quite starchy and they were really hard to chew, and they're actually not very good for you. So they contain maltodextrin, and for those of you who watch my channel, you know that I'm not so much into processed artificial crap, really. I don't like having processed sugar, artificial sugars, and maltodextrin, that is one of the leaders of artificial sugars and will heighten the cravings and things like that. But yeah, I packed them. I took a little baggie of these and just put them in my sports bra. I took three is the dose, and also in there were some band-aids as well. They were, you know, on standby just in case. But yeah, I didn't use anything. Just be careful when you're going through the water tents that you're not grabbing the electrolytes. I always had to dodge them. But yeah, so I just did it off water and that was fine. After the race, I felt so fine. I was on such a high. I had friends there cheering me on, so that was really exciting. I was like a bit distracted, so the need for refueling wasn't really on my mind, wasn't really on my radar. But when we were walking back to the car, I got like a fizzy head. Like I genuinely felt like my brain cells were popping. Like it was a really funny feeling. It was also really cold as well, so I find that was kind of catching up on me, I guess you could say. I don't know, but what I realized is I needed to refuel stat. So in the car, I just had a couple more tablespoons of peanut butter and some leftover nuts, and that honestly made me feel so much better. I shut my eyes for like 5 minutes, and then when I got out of the car, I was like a new person, and that excitement kind of returned. Went out for breakfast, and if you go onto my Instagram, I've got a picture of my breakfast. It was just like 2 eggs, some broccolini, and some avocado and things like that. Healthy fats are really, really good. Avocado is amazing to have at any time during, pre or after the race, because healthy fats again, and also quite calorie dense. Digestion, so it's always really, really important to kind of make your best effort and to kind of get your body used to the early morning start and running that early, and making sure you're eating the right foods that will digest before the race, because the last thing you want to have to do is line up at the toilet halfway through or like during the race. That's really annoying. I always feel so sorry for people queuing up out of those portaloos. In preparing for this, like usually I've always been like an evening runner, but in the mornings I was getting up and trying to kind of match the time with the race time, so therefore I could kind of get my body ready to wake up and actually do that amount of exercise that early. Hydration, very important the morning of. So I had my bulletproof coffee, and I know coffee is quite dehydrating, so with that I tried to smash as much water as I could and as early as possible. The day before as well, I think I had like 5 liters of water, I kid you not, maybe even more, and that was really, really good. I was like weeing all day, but whatever. And yeah, so just drink as much water as you can prior, and also try and increase your sodium intake, and this will help with increasing electrolytes, which is what you really, really need. So if you're not running off carbs, you won't have those mid-race, like when you see people like curled over on the side of the road vomiting and feeling faint, whatever. It's generally because they've run out of their carbohydrate stores and their body doesn't really know how to use the fat stores. So I had no injuries, no blisters. I put band-aids on my big toes and my heels just in case. I didn't even need that for when I was training, but I just think that it's really, really good for prophylactic kind of treatment. Try and avoid it happening in the first place, because then it's just gonna be a really uncomfortable run. By increasing your omegas, you're going to help with reducing inflammation. So like I said before, reducing the pain of recovery and things like that. You're just going to bounce back and you're going to be ready to go again when you're training, that is. I kind of tried to train every single day. In my head, I'd like planned a run, and I couldn't do that every day. So my little program that I wrote for myself was like 6 days a week and trying to run up to 70 kilometers a week. That wasn't sustainable. To be completely honest, I had a big night every single weekend. I just had stuff on. So if it makes you feel better about your training, I tried to maintain a healthy social life and just a life, but also trying to just on that Monday get it back together. That first run was always difficult, but just doing the slog. The longest race I did was like 36 kilometers, and probably the shortest run I would do in a day is probably like 9 or 10. In the shorter runs, I'd pick a hilly terrain, so I'd try and pick a route where there were like stairs or like massive hills or something, just because if I am short on time or I kind of can't be bothered, there is that little bit of extra challenge. And I know a good way to prepare for a marathon is definitely doing hills. The course for the Canberra Marathon was really flat, so honestly it was the best preparation because nothing was going to be as hard as those hills that I had been training with. I don't think running these distances and training like this is sustainable. I just it was more mentally taxing than physically. I have absolutely realized that I much prefer weight training for body composition as well. When I first started running those distances, I dropped a lot of weight, so I had to kind of play around with my calorie goal just to maintain my weight and also make sure that I was fully energized. So it meant, you know, having a little bit more pre-workout, so like an extra scoop of peanut butter, even though like it pained me to eat it, like I just didn't want it at that time in the morning, but it just needed to be done. And also refueling, so I was eating much more. I was eating like up to like plus 3,000 calories a day, and that's a lot of food for a small girl, but I lost my abs actually, so not ab training, and yeah, I don't know, my body composition when I was weight training I just preferred, I think. So I'm looking forward to getting that back. With pacing for the race, so usually when I've done my halves I hadn't paid any attention to my pacing at all, but I was using Map My Run, which was really good, and my goal was just to kind of stay around the 6 minute mark, 6 minute per kilometer mark, just so I didn't get too tired. So when I first started the race, I was going quite slowly, and I kind of like picked groups of people to run where I've kind of figured they were going at a good pace, and I knew that they were going to sustain it because they were in a group or they were like chatting. So I kind of just followed them, and then didn't want to get carried away. I'm quite a competitive person, so in the past I had been like sprinting past people trying to get into like the open areas, so I wasn't stuck behind anyone, but yeah, this time it was really good to pace, and I honestly think that's what got me through with almost no fatigue for the full 42 kilometers. For me, music choice is really important. I want to pick a kind of music that will get me into a trance, so I'm more focusing on that music rather than the running. So I actually listen to trance, which is really good. If you want some recommendations, just hit me up. I think I was listening to a 5-hour Brian Carney set on SoundCloud, and that meant that I was in the trance the whole time. I didn't have to mess around with changing the songs, or a song would come on that I didn't really like, but I know everyone listens to different music, and also they're inspired by different music during a run. Will I do another marathon? Well, there's actually one on the 19th of May, and it's running the Great Ocean Road, so I'm thinking of doing that. It's fairly soon, and my sister's wedding is next weekend, so it's going to be a bit of a stretch, but I'll keep you posted if I do it. But yeah, it's kind of addictive. Once you do one, you just want to keep doing them, but I'd like to get back into my weight training as well. So what I will say in running a marathon, it is totally a mental thing. Whether or not you need to refuel during the race, I feel like it's all in your mind. And it's funny because when you see like the 40 kilometer mark, or if you're doing a half marathon in the past, like I'd seen the 20 kilometer mark and I've got 1 kilometer left, or in this case I had 2 kilometers left, it's just like, holy fuck, like when is this going to end? But it's not so much because my muscles are fatigued, or if I'm in pain. It's not like that. It's just like the finish line is there, like I just need to get there. So that's really interesting. And I was listening to a podcast the day before the run, and the guy on the podcast said if you smile during a run, it's going to enhance your performance, and that's because mentally you're going to just send good vibes to your brain, and this will keep you going for longer. So see a cameraman, just give them a big smile, and honestly the atmosphere on the day is just insane. Like, it's like nothing else, and it will re-energize you, and just, you've got people running past you, like everybody's supporting one another. I found that all people from all different shapes and sizes and ages, like this little 70-year-old man like ran past me. I think he was doing the 10-kilometer, and it was just so good to see. There were guys running with prams. There was one guy doing the marathon who ran with a pram the entire way. But yeah, there was actually a guy running with a Spider-Man outfit on as well, and like a full mask, and I think he did that for majority of the race. Every time I saw him, he had it on, and how he was breathing in that thing, I'm not sure, but it's just such a good vibe. And everyone, like, there were people dressed up and people supporting charities, and it's just so good to see. The vibe on the day is just something else, and that enough will kind of energize you and motivate you to get to the finish line. You just want to do it. But yeah, that was my experience running a marathon. Honestly, running off fat was the best thing I've ever done for running, and yeah, I didn't feel that fatigue. I didn't run out of my energy stores, and I didn't ever feel the need that I was going to stop. Like, stopping wasn't even an option for me. It didn't even cross my mind. It was just finish it, but felt like I could have kept going. So who knows, might do an ultra next time. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope this was helpful for those of you wanting to transition from using glycogen for fuel for running to fat for fuel. Lasts for longer, you feel stronger, your recovery time is much quicker, and you don't need to worry about refueling mid-race, because food and fuel just isn't really on your mind. You can focus on the actual race itself. So I'll see you next time. Again, thanks so much for watching.